Hello friends, I'm back for part 2 of my top shelf current favorite sunscreens. So if you have not already seen part 1, go over and check that one out. That one's gonna have some of our big categories. I'm talking like favorite chemical, favorite mineral, glowy, matte. So I think if you are looking for a certain one and you don't see it here, definitely check that out. But today we are getting into a few different categories. So on the list I have bronzing, I have invisible, I have waterproof, what else do I have? Best tint, and then best hybrid. So these are the categories again, and I mentioned this in the first video, this is just what I have right now. This is what I have in my life. I have inserted a few clips or pictures of ones that I don't currently have, but I have repurchased many times and would 100% repurchase if I didn't own so many. But for the sake of this video and the last one, it's really like, what am I reaching for truly right now? So that's kind of what we're doing today. We're gonna jump on in and I'm gonna talk through them and we'll show some B-roll footage of them, like application to my hand, since I'm not applying it to my face. But if you're not already subscribed, go ahead, go do it below. It helps so much. Give this video a like, comment below, and we'll get into it. Okay, I think I like this like dichotomy thing where I do mineral, chemical. So for that sake, we're gonna do invisible and bronzing. That seems like a good mix right now. So let's start off with invisible. I have 2 favorites right now, and that's what I am truly reaching for when I'm reaching for an invisible sunscreen. And if you have not seen it already, I'm not sure if it's gonna go up before or after. I have a whole video that I've done on invisible sunscreens. It was a lot because they are invisible, so it's very hard to show the nuanced differences. But what I am truly reaching for when I want an invisible sunscreen are one of these 2. This one right here is almost empty. I can kind of see through the bottle, but this is the Sun Bum Daily Gel. I love this because it is truly, well, obviously it's invisible, but it has a very middle of the road consistency. It doesn't feel too thick, but it's not too thin. It's like the Goldilocks of invisible sunscreens. It also has one of the higher protections. So this is SPF 50 and it's waterproof. So for those reasons, like I just tend to like gravitate toward things like that. I also like that it is super accessible. Like for my other one, this one comes from Europe, but this one, if you are in the US, you can pretty much pick it up anywhere. I feel like Sun Bum is in a lot of drugstores these days. It's in Target. It's just readily accessible and it's not the most expensive. I'm not going to say it's the cheapest because definitely not. The Trader Joe's one is like, if you're just looking for cheap, go with that one. This is $22, but I feel like it's a very affordable, like easy to pick up kind of thing. I think I mentioned, that it's water resistant for 80 minutes, which I love. And I've worn this at the beach. I also like that not only is it invisible, but it is matte. So I'm already sweating when I'm at the beach or out at the lake or wherever. I don't need more glow. I want to tone that down. So if you're looking for something like that, this is definitely one of my top choices. The other top choice that I have talked about for a while now is the Transparent Lab. This one is the invisible sunscreen. Honestly, both of their sunscreens are invisible. This one's called invisible, the other one is called lightweight. But they both are chemical and they're both gonna go on 100% invisible. But I really wanted to stick to like the clear invisible sunscreens. And I can't say enough good words about this because this one retails for $23, but it is one of the few that is a massive size. You can see from like how big it is compared to my face. This is 100 milliliters or 3.3 fluid ounces. So $23, it actually breaks down to much less per ounce. It is also waterproof and sweat resistant, and the SPF is one of the highest there is. So it's SPF 50 for PAs, and then you have a PPD of 45. So again, if I'm gonna be reaching for something, especially because like I'm at the beach or I'm out doing a sport and I want high protection, but I don't want it to look like anything, this is what I reach for. I will say if you have more dry skin, this one might be a little bit better if you want like a little bit more of a glow, because it doesn't dry down as matte as the Sun Bum one, but I still love this. I love almost everything Transparent Labs does, so you can pick this one or the lightweight up and I think you'll be happy with either. let's move into bronzing. So I have two SPFs that are bronzing drops, but SPF. Now I want to say before I get into these too much, these are not your sunscreen. This is a bonus. This is a topper. I really, really recommend that you not just go to this as your sunscreen, especially if you're going to be out and about in the sun or what, well, obviously in the sun, but like for extended periods of time, because you would need to put so much of this on, you would look insane. I've never tried it because it's not what it's meant for. This is an SPF topper. Think of it like that. With that said, I think both of these are absolutely stunning. This one is the more expensive, harder to get in the US. This is the ultraviolet. This is only 30 milliliters, so 1 fluid ounce, and it does retail for $46. More expensive, harder to get in the US, but I kind of reach for this over everything. When I do want a bronzing drop, I actually prefer this dropper because I'm only using a little bit or I'm putting it on a brush to apply it. Whereas the Naked Sundays one comes with this top where I find that it gets really, really messy very quickly. It also, the packaging has just like worn off and I haven't even used it that much. So if you're gonna just go off of that alone, I go for the ultraviolet, but for price, the Naked Sundays is a little cheaper. But let's finish off with the ultraviolet. I also really enjoy the tone of this. I feel like it's a little bit more of a neutral tone and I don't have to worry about if I apply too much that I'm gonna look crazy. I have a full video on bronzing drops, so go check that out. Both of these are included. It'll give you a lot more details. It'll give you what it looks like on my face. But I've been packing this one with me. What I like to do especially is I put an invisible sunscreen on first and then I put a few drops of this on. And then if I wanna put concealer or something else, and that's it. It's the most perfect, like heavy SPF, but also kind of makeup look. And I really, really enjoy the ultraviolet one. Okay, so the Naked Sundays is a little cheaper. It's still expensive. This is $34, but you are getting the 1.7 fluid ounces, so your normal amount. And like I said, the downside of this one is the packaging. I think that this is a little clunky. It comes out and like you can spill it very easily. So I don't love that, but I do like the texture of this. It's so silky. It's so easy to spread on your face and it doesn't leave it with that like weird bronzy streaks. So if you're looking for something a little easier to get in the US or a lot easier to get, but kind of comparable to the ultraviolet, this would be the one. And you're getting a way better deal because it's not way less. It's less, but you get a lot more in the packaging. Okay, let's move on to waterproof. Now, waterproof is a tricky category for me because sometimes they can be too waterproof. And like for everyday use, I actually don't really love waterproof because it means like I don't have a choice but to thoroughly wash my face. Now, don't get me wrong. I always double cleanse. Like I am very big on taking my sunscreen off, but sometimes, especially like the Japanese sunscreens, they can be hard to take off. So I'm gonna just mention two briefly because I think if you want a very, very water resistant and also a little bit more glowy sunscreen, the two options that I would recommend are the Skin Aqua, basically any of the Skin Aquas. This is just the one that I have. This is the Super Moisture Barrier UV Gel. They have like 4 now, so kind of choose one that you like, and usually it's waterproof, but double check. And then the Isinox UV Sun Pro Sun Fluid. They're both incredibly water resistant, high protection. I just don't reach for them on a daily basis because, like I said, very hard to remove, or not hard, but you just have to make sure you get it all off. So good for long days at the beach, that kind of thing, but not truly what I reach for on an everyday basis. The one that I do reach for more frequently if I'm going to be using a waterproof sunscreen is the Kiss Me Mommy waterproof sunscreen. I love this one. It's so easy. I feel like a little easier to apply even than the Isinox. The UV or the Skin Aqua is very easy to apply, but this one has that kind of cream gel texture that it's like you can put on like 5 finger lengths and be like, okay, I'll put on more, not a problem. It's not scented, it doesn't irritate, it is good even for sensitive skin. I think it's actually made for children, so also incredibly affordable. So this is one of the ones that I always use when I'm like kind of on a day trip to the beach or something. This is one that I pack. The other one, now we're talking serious protection, is the Ryman 20. This is again for sensitive skin. And this one is SPF 50 plus, and it has 4 PAs, very high protection. This is also supposed to offer you 8 hours of sun protection. I know I haven't done a video on this yet because I feel like I don't know, I build it up in my head as a lot, and I just haven't done it. But this is a great option, especially like for kids, or when you know, again, like you're gonna be at the beach, you don't really wanna reapply. This is an incredibly good option, and they do have lots of different options, so you don't have to have SPF 50, but of course I love that. And I also like the fact that this is kind of like a one and done. You don't have to think about reapplying during the day. And of course, water resistant, waterproof. Now let's talk about best tints that I reach for in a daily, like if I want a tinted sunscreen, what am I gonna be reaching for? I feel like I have two kind of different options. So the first one I have is the First Aid Beauty Weightless Liquid Mineral Sunscreen. This is SPF 30, it's your normal amount. Actually, it's a little less now that I'm looking at it. It's 1.5 fluid ounces, which is 44 milliliters, but pretty standard amount. This one has 22% zinc oxide, so a high percentage of zinc oxide, which doesn't always mean the formula is great, but this one, like the name suggests, is very liquid, very easy to blend. I mean, you don't really blend it, you just like put it on your face. And I love the tint of this. It just is one of those ones that's the neutral kind of tint, doesn't pull too warm, doesn't pull any like weird shade. And I feel like a lot of skin tones will look good with it. For me, this one doesn't have much coverage at all. So if you're looking for something that really just cancels out the white cast but doesn't give you a huge tint, maybe just a slight like sheer coverage, this is the one. Now, on the other hand, the one that I really like that has a little bit more coverage is the Dermatology Matte Universal Tinted Moisturizer. To me, this one it's an interesting sunscreen in general, but this one has a little bit more coverage, and I think it's just the factor of the consistency. This one is more of a cream. You have to pump it out. Looks like this. Whereas your First Aid Beauty one is a liquid and you just pour it out. So I feel like you'll be able to tell the difference just by the applicator. So on days where I'm like, I just want a sunscreen that gives me a little bit more, not heavy coverage, but a little bit more coverage, evens out my skin tone, and obviously has SPF protection, I go for the Dermatology. On days where I don't want really any coverage, I would go for the First Aid Beauty. The First Aid Beauty though is a little bit more glowy, so I have to be prepared for that. Maybe it's in the wintertime or I just don't mind that glow. Whereas the Dermatology one, it says it's matte. I have a whole video on this. I have found it to be actually quite unique in the sense that it's not always matte on my skin. Kind of depends on the base. If I have a lot of skincare underneath, it's not matte. It does kind of mattify during the day, but if I have no sunscreen or no skincare on at all, it definitely is matte. So I actually don't mind that. It just took some getting used to. So it makes it a little bit more flexible. Whereas the First Aid Beauty is pretty much going to be like that regardless of what you have underneath if you put skincare on. So these are the two options. I do love both of them though because they don't add any color or tone to my skin. So that's what I'm looking for when I'm looking for a tint. Not something that has like this bright orange or yellow tone or a lot of coverage. I just want very, very minimal. And that's for me, of course. The other one I will mention is the Lightsaber. I'm not gonna put a picture of it here, but I've talked about that so many times. That also has one of the best tints, very neutral. It's going to work on a lot of different skin tones, and it's just a spectacular, wonderful tint and sunscreen. Okay, and my last category is hybrid. So I actually don't have a lot of hybrid sunscreens because I don't gravitate toward them. And technically, if I wanted to get picky, I could just go to all my mineral sunscreens and find the ones that have butyl salicylate and put them in this category. But I'm not gonna do that because that feels a little petty. So the one that I am gonna talk about is one that is advertised as hybrid. And hybrid means that it has either zinc oxide or titanium dioxide as your mineral filter, and then one of the chemical filters. So it could be octinoxate, octocrylene, homosalate. There's so many. Those are kind of the US filters, but you could have like Uvinol T150, just a million different, tinosorm. So it's basically the combination of those two makes it a hybrid. And they tend to have very good protection, good UVA protection as well as UVB. So there's nothing wrong with hybrids. I just find a lot of the times they tend to just be more like the mineral side, like all the cons of a mineral sunscreen and none of the pros of the chemical sunscreen. But I will say this new Dermatology matte one is one of my favorite hybrid sunscreens. And I'm gonna kind of just leave it here because I have a whole video on this. I just talked about it for the tinted sunscreens that I like. So if you are interested in getting more details on it, just go watch that video. It will give you all the details. It'll kind of go through like the ups and downs of how I felt when I was trying it too. But I do like this, and I said it just a moment ago where I like how versatile it is. It can work dependent on if you have skincare on or not, and it just kind of is adaptable and changes depending on what you have underneath or your skin type is to begin with. So that is my favorite right now for hybrids. Okay guys, that's part 2 done with. Also, thank you, because now I actually have a desk that I can touch and see again. I'm very excited to get some of these sunscreens off my desk, and I hope you enjoyed this. I will try to put these out probably in the summer from now on, because what I do at the end of the year is I do my favorites. So that's like the year end, and then like a midpoint is like, what am I using right now? This feels like a good cadence to me. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts below. And of course, like always, I shall see you in the next one. Bye! Okay, so here are our swatches from left to right. This one is the Sun Bum Invisible. Next up is the Transparent Lab Invisible. This one is the Ultraviolet Bronzing Drop. Then we have the Naked Sunday Bronzing Drop. After that we have Kiss Me Mommy Waterproof Sunscreen. Then we have the Ryman P20 Waterproof Sunscreen. Then we have the First Aid Beauty. And last up is the Dermatology Tinted Mineral Matte. You can see the difference in the tone for the bronzing drops from Ultraviolet versus Naked Sundays. The invisible ones are pretty clear. Then the 2 waterproof ones are both chemical. And the ones that are some of my favorite tints are the Fab and the Dermatology.